friends, everyone. Tonight, unfortunately, the Rumble fell through. Summertime, everyone's got their own thing to do. Heck, I was in the capital of New York State and made it back in time. But just a pebble in the road, and we shall move on and continue forward from it. So instead of doing a Rumble, I thought to myself, hey, I took the time, the schedule out of my day. I guess I'll make sure that at least I put something on screen. And while I didn't prepare, uh, yeah, we're ready. We're ready, exactly, Casey. We're ready. Whew. Um, no, Raj. The Rumble was not bungled. No, it's. But yes, it fell through. It happened. Um, but we will move on and we will continue with reality as it is without it. I'm just adjusting some things on the screen over here. Okay, so because I don't have. I mean, I didn't prepare as much to make like a full show or do a lot of the research I would usually do to like entertain some topics. And most likely, we're not going to have tons of viewers because people don't expect me to usually stream Sunday nights. I thought it'd be a fun time to talk about a few things that I explored this weekend myself, and then like I dealt with themselves. So I wrote them in the thumbnail, and I'll go over them. So a few things. First of all, we got to talk about Hawaii and Hawaii uh, burning basically. And and while Hawaii was Scott, how can you just jump into my EVMux while I'm doing my recording and just distract me like this, bro? What the fuck, man? What are you doing? Okay, I'm gonna mute you right now. Um, Sorry about that. They didn't. I don't think they realized I was live, and they just jumped in to talk to me. But it happens. It's okay. Um, where was I? Yes. So Hawaii is on fire, and for those who don't know, it's big news. I think over the weekend, I think they're at 100 dead right now in Hawaii. So we're gonna watch a video about that. We'll go over. We'll talk about it at the same time. Another thing that I'm excited for is on September 5th. Um, oh, I know Scott just wants to give me love, but I was in the middle of introducing the show. I was in the middle of introducing the show. I love you, Scott, too. No anger. Don't worry. You'll come on. We're gonna have a conversation. Anyone can come on, brother. You can all join in like the queue and just like wait to hang out. It's gonna be fun. So, I am interviewing September 5th. I'm having an interview with Cornell West, who's running as a candidate for president. I'm very excited about this interview. Two reasons. One, I think that most of the interviews he gets, or most of the interviews that I've watched that he gets, are usually from other progressive thinkers or like middle of the line like shows that get him on, and they ask him very much similar questions, and he gives a very basic based schema of fascism is an outgrowth of capitalism, and all that stuff. He talks about it, social inequity and racial justice, and of course he melds jazz into it as he loves jazz. But I want to make it a bit more personal. So if anyone's seen like the show Hot Ones or shows similar, I'm really gonna take the time to research about his life, research who he is. But maybe we'll do that together as we talk about it. Um, has anyone asked if he's worried about splitting the Democrat votes? Yeah, I watched a video today actually on the car ride back where they did ask him about that, and he says that he's not. I think he's as worried about that, and he's really just kind of wants to like bring class consciousness in a way as he was speaking about it, because the solution is not just splitting the Democratic votes. It's not just perpetuating the system as it is. The Democrats and the Republicans are still neoliberal, neoconservatives, people who participate within the economic system and can't like take themselves out of it, which is fun. Secondly, I had a great conversation, of course, about abortion. So we're going to talk abortion and veganism. During the Rumble, I think it was last week, or maybe it was the first week, I spoke about how I think that abortion and veganism kind of argue the same thing. They kind of ask, like, name the traits. And as we go through different abortion arguments, or I have Ben Shapiro pulled up, we can look at something that he said about abortion. We can maybe talk about that argument and why that argument is, I don't know, it's like asking when did time start. It's an irrelevant argument, basically. And the last one is that art doesn't need to feel good. I went to an amazing show this weekend. And the opening act of the art show was this like avant-garde musical piece that was, while stimulation was very, very low, it was very non-stimulating. When it was coupled together with the second act, it almost made it impressive. And I think that when we talk about art and the way we react towards art, it's important that we think of also like art's historical narrative and what art tries to convey. And I thought we can talk about Dada art because I am working on a cultural Marxism neo-fascist video, and that might be cool to discuss. So that's what we're going to be talking about. That was my little fun introduction. So I say, who do we start with? Well, Casey wanted to say something. I mean, I get that, but there's a reason Bernie was so successful while still failing. What do you think was the reason that Bernie was successful while still failing? I mean, I think he was successful in the fact that he did rile up Democrats, and he did affect and change the party in many ways. But at the same time, I think Cornell West would respond to that. Not my opinion, what I think he would respond. He would say that you can't affect systemic change like that to work within the system, right? Like the reason why politically he couldn't make it, and even if he was in power, he wouldn't be able to do what he needed to do, is because once he gets into power, he won't be able to work outside of the party and change it from the inside. The party will just no longer fund itself like it needs to fund. It's almost like a systemic problem. Um, so, well, it's also odd. I mean, he's running on a year where Joe Biden's the incumbent. Like, I'm obviously going to ask him that. So that's what that is. Sorry for my low energy again. Very low weekend, but we're gonna get pumped up as things move on. So let's start with Maui and the fact that Hawaii is literally burning at this moment in time, which is very sad. Very, very sad. Here, let's get this going. Let's watch this video.
This morning, heartbreak, confusion, and lack of communication. Days after massive wildfires destroyed the heart of western Maui, the desperate search for loved ones, with hundreds still unaccounted for. This stunning drone video showing rows of torched vehicles, now twisted husks, frozen in time.
So many people have died. My friends lost their grandparents in the fires. People are being found in their cars.
In Lahaina, the town most devastated by the wildfire, a point of no return. Residents like Leslie Clark left with nothing.
The whole thing is gone.
Anguished residents stuck in miles-long traffic jams trying to recover what's left of their homes.
I want this area cleared just in case I have an emergency, all right?
What you're seeing is the road to Lahaina. Some people have been waiting in this line for more than 15 hours to get access to their homes. I can tell you the mood is tense. People have been sleeping in their cars. They want answers.
After letting people through.
I get the sense that, first of all, let's start with this, how horrific it is. And obviously, this is a byproduct of global warming. This is a byproduct of climate change. We saw forest fires in Canada. One of the predictions has been the intensification of forest fires. We had one of the hottest summers ever recorded in human history. So that reality needs to be contended with. But I feel like what we should expect, at least rhetorically, from a lot of people, and to ask ourselves, well, what are people, sorry, I lost my train of thought. What people might respond to it will be things like, oh, it's not like the fire is that bad. It's that we're not having it's Democrat-run states and Trudeau-run Canada who just can't respond things correctly. If we had a real tough guy, a real businessman, they would make sure to get water on those, fires, and they'll run the state great and make sure that, these fire departments are working as hard. They have the hearts and minds of the fire and police fight. Like, all of that nonsense is just literal nonsense. Okay? Democratic states run really efficiently. When you look at the United States, they are the richest, best functioning states, as opposed to the red states. Some red states might say that it's because of the fact that the U.S., the Northerners fucked them during Reconstruction or wherever it might be. But that's not the case. Most of these states literally live off of the federal funding that the blue states create for them. Kentucky being one of them especially. So, a lot of this just is a really sad situation, and that we should just watch it and just sit here and reflect on the fact that this is why this is happening, right? Like, it just really is. So.
Through for 90 minutes Saturday, Maui police abruptly shutting down this entrance, leaving many drivers furious.
How are people supposed to get there if the damn roads are closed?
Some attempting to get crucial medication to those who need it the most, like Nurse Sherry Palomba, pushing to help those suffering from diabetes.
Would you say that medication for people is the greatest need right now?
Huge. If people can't get their insulin, they're going to die.
For survivors,
you're going to be okay, Milo.
Harrowing stories of escape.
Both sides, to the left and the right, are on fire.
19-year-old Noah Tompkinson, his mother and younger brother, diving into the ocean to escape the flames.
We kind of had it in the back of our mind the whole time that we wanted to be next to the water.
And now new questions over the emergency response to the fires. NBC News learning warning sirens were never activated, according to Hawaii emergency officials. And while phone, television, and radio alerts were, the governor says telecommunications were knocked out by the fire.
There was no emergency system, and most people, their phones were gone before they could get it.
Many have said they didn't receive any warnings. The state attorney general now opening an investigation into the response. Amid the rush, the only two escape routes out of Lahaina along the coast.
You see, this is where I think the right is going to stick on it. This is going to be the argumentation. It wasn't because of the fires or global warming. You're always, crying global warming, global warming, global warming. The fires are because of that, and they were so intense. Like they said, they knocked out the emergency response systems. That makes sense. I don't think Hawaii prepared for this. I don't think Canada was able to prepare for this. These are things that aren't just happening by accident. There's causes for them.
The remains we're finding is through a fire that melted metal. We have to do rapid DNA to identify them.
Some of those who died were trapped in their cars. With fears this morning, there are many more.
And back to that investigation, a Maui communications director recently told the local news outlet that neither the Maui fire chief nor a top emergency management official were on the island as the fires were already breaking out. We've reached out for comment. We haven't heard back yet. Hallie?
Steve, thank you.
Hey, thanks for watching. Don't miss the Today Show every
I don't care
weekday
about the
at
rest of
11
the Today
a.m.
Show.
Eastern, 8
Shut up.
Pacific on our
Shut up.
streaming channel. Today.
There we go. There we go. Hop off. Ooh, we have Perry in the chat. Perry, do you want to come up? Everyone, of course, everyone knows this. This is Perry, my boy Perry. He always does the background work for the Rumble, but now he gets to be on screen, and all three of us can see him who's watching the chat. Did you know about the fires in Hawaii?
Absolutely not. No.
What do you think?
So when they said that they were going to open up an investigation, is that an investigation on, like the meteorologist or whoever would know that this may or may not happen? Like, because people weren't getting enough forewarning, it seems like, right? Whose job is that?
So I guess the investigation would be, was there like a failure on the government or a failure on the emergency response systems or some sort of negligence that has caused this problem to begin? Like, that's what they would probably be investigating, right?
Yeah, getting people their insulin, getting people a bunch of their other stuff that they were talking about. Yeah. I wonder if they can, and I don't know if this would be in the budget, but I wonder if they can start thinking of ways that they could hedge these things and express lane for certain vehicles to get medical equipment out to people, so that if this happens in the future, if like a volcano hits or some, they should have some precautions for that. They ought, it seems to me. I don't know if they do or not, but it doesn't seem like that.
I mean, infrastructure wise, we should have dedicated lanes for emergency vehicles, right? That would be a very smart thing to do, to make sure that, emergency vehicles can get, or like have shoulders. But you know, do you think during like a firestorm or a volcano, people are, willing to follow those rules? I think everyone would just take the express vehicle. I would.
They're going to take the carpool
say,
lane whenever they have the chance,
Yeah, exactly. I would personally just say, fuck it,
Yep.
Wouldn't you do it if you were with your family and your kids?
It's so hard because I don't want to lie, but I also want to abide to my moral stances.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I would want to do it in such a way, though, that would make sure not to negate other people's well-being and their chance to escape as well. I would be trying my best to, but if it's, if it turns into anarchy, the war of all against all, I'm not going to be a pacifist, I'll say.
I'm with you. I'm with you. So I think that's what they will be investigating. But see, what I'm predicting here, and maybe I'm going to get my Mystic Mac hat back. Every time I make a prediction, you do you follow the UFC at all? Have you ever followed the UFC?
The only UFC that I watch is with you, and I have a great time when I do.
True,
so I wish that you
would.
Well,
Conor McGregor. I should do a UFC. I can't do a technical UFC live stream because they copyrighted right away. But what I can do is I can do a live stream of me just reacting to the fight, like a fight companion, I guess.
Yep.
And then on the Discord, we will be watching the pay-per-view as we pay for it. Wink, wink, nod, nod. Right. Everyone is going to pay for the pay-per-view.
Dude, you should either do a stream or won't talk about anything going on behind the scenes, but you do a stream of if Elon Musk and
I would absolutely do that. I would absolutely do that.
That'd be unreal,
dude. I actually think that Mark Zuckerberg is going to win.
Zuckerberg, yeah. Well, yeah, I do too. Also, but I want to see how Zuckerberg deals with that huge thoracic cavity of Elon Musk.
Have you ever seen like Justice League as a kid?
No, probably not. I mean, maybe
well,
a little
you know
bit,
how there's like a brain that lives inside like this android controlling it with arms. I feel like that's what like Elon Musk's is with his like square body. He just has like a little brain just like controlling him like an android.
He does seem very robotic in many ways.
Yeah. Anyhow, so I was thinking that for the forest fires, one of the things that might come up. The reason why I brought up Mystic Mac is because Conor McGregor, the UFC fighter, used to predict the outcome of his fights and get it right, and he would call himself Mystic Mac. So
until he didn't get it right.
Yeah, until he became like a chump and stopped trying.
I saw in that video there was these people. They were in the water.
Yeah.
Now, is this just where they found themselves, or was there any like strategy of having the cloth with a wet, having a wet cloth cover? Would that like kind of filter a lot of the smoke doing that? That was kind of a side thought that I had when watching that.
I can't tell you. I'm not like enough versed.
Did they just find themselves there? Like,
no. I think they said specifically. Here, let's go watch it again. Actually,
that water's safer, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I would think water's safer, wouldn't you? I mean, for getting fire on you.
Yeah.
But let's see what they were doing specifically.
The greatest need right now.
If people can't get their insulin, they're going to die.
For survivors,
you're going to be okay, Milo.
Harrowing stories of escape.
Both sides, to the left and the right, are on fire.
19-year-old Noah Tompkinson, his mother and younger brother, diving into the ocean to escape the flames.
We kind of had it in the back of our mind the whole time that we wanted to be next to the water.
And now new questions over the emergency response to the fires. NBC News learning warning sirens were never activated, according to Hawaii emergency officials.
There it is. Okay.
So yeah, they said that they felt as though they wanted to be near the water, assuming that they're covering that because it's a safe thing to do.
Exactly. I mean, right? Like you have smoke around you. You put your shirt up to your mouth, or it helps filter it out. Right. So that's probably what they were doing. They didn't want to get suffocated by the smoke while in the water. That would be terrible.
Were you trained by recreationally? No, I'm kidding. I'm not advocating smoking unless it's weed.
No. But I have a suspicion that some of the talking points are going to be that the wildfire isn't because of global warming or climate change. It's because of the lack of ability of the Hawaiian government, the Democrat-run government, to respond to the fires. You see, they're under
Mm.
investigation. Right?
The right's going to have a field day with this, aren't they?
That's what I think. I think that the propagandists out there and those who believe that that's like that's how they're gonna play the game.
And
Right?
then the left is going to respond saying, "Oh, well, these things that made it this way were implemented when Trump was president, so actually it's the right's fault." And that's
Yeah. Oh, maybe
exactly
it's
how it's going
because
to
the
go.
right is trying to defund
Yeah.
agriculture. That's why it happened. But the truth is, it happened because of climate change, and the fact that Hawaii's preparedness didn't function is not a Democrat or Republican problem.
Right.
It's a federal. There's probably federal reasons for why it's failed, whether it be a lack of funding, but that needs to be looked at through the investigation. We don't know what the failure points were, right? It could be that they were accurately funded, right? It could be that they weren't. It could be that some areas weren't fireproof, or they didn't expect a fire like this to happen, right? There's all these different things we have to know before we can even make a decision on what's the cause of this failure is.
Well, we can get on to the next topic, but I would say that humans are fallible, but it seems as though once whoever's in charge gets that notification that there's shit going down, there's forest fires, it seems like that message is not going to be gatekept. It's going to be released to the public, and I don't know. I wonder if they are forest fire precautioned properly or not. I guess that would be the real question.
Exactly, that would be the real question. It's just terrible. I think how many? I think it's over 100 dead at this point.
Okay,
that's massive. That's a shit ton of people to die from a fire.
How many people were affected total, or had to evacuate? Or
let's see. Let's look it up.
I'm gonna guess. I don't know. 17,000. I have no idea.
17,000. I mean, let's see.
I don't know how even big the area is affected, so I'm not extrapolating from anything.
Let's see what's the most recent one. I'm trying to find. Not 3 days ago, not 2 days ago. I want recent. I want right now. Come on, Google. Come on. Let's do Google.
If anyone in the chat has the number, go ahead and throw it in.
93. The damage so far, they don't have the number of people affected, but they say 90. They said over $6 billion worth of damages. 1 second.
Yeah.
It's in the tens of thousands of people are affected by this. Not at all like just to say over the overall economy that was provided as well by these institutions. So you don't even know like people who weren't even used to work there or had schools there or whatever it is. That's just all gone at this point. And how that's going to affect the rest of the island in Hawaii, who even knows?
Yeah, I hate trying to degrade the 100 lives that were lost. My condolences to those families who probably won't hear this, but regardless, the damages, you said 6 billion, will in turn affect many more people as well.
Yeah.
Not that I'm going to put a moral value on each agent, but both things are very tragic, and hopefully that gets dealt with as best as possible.
Of course. Truisms. You could be a politician, Perry.
Yeah, I would rather eat my own shit over and over again.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you know what? Fuck it. Maybe I will, and maybe I'll be a good benefit to humanity if I do.
Right? Channel your inner like Stoic, your inner Roman, your inner Greek, your inner man of the people, right?
A combination of Marcus Aurelius, Edmund Burke, and Kant, all trying to put ethics into politics and whatnot. And
it would be beautiful. Okay. So the next thing that I was going to talk about, and of course you can be here for all of it, is about Ben Shapiro and the way he talks about abortion. Pray for Prez, amen. Okay. So this video is named Ben Shapiro Instantly Owns Pro-Abortion Leftist. But we're not here to actually talk about Ben Shapiro. We're here to talk about the abortion argument as it relates to veganism, because I think that they're actually very, very related. So Ben Shabibo. I think Ben Shabibo is one of the most dishonest Jews out there. If he's watching, you're a dishonest Jew.
One day, you two are going to be able to talk to each other, and
Can you imagine?
My life will be complete.
Can you imagine? Yeah, he comes to you. What do you mean I'm a dishonest Jew? But like, what do you mean you literally are working with Jews for Jesus people? You're sitting next to Michael Knowles. You fucking talk about Judeo-Christian values as if that's a fucking thing. Judeo-Christian values, bro. Judeo-Christian values are not a thing. Have never been a thing, and are never gonna be a thing. Okay, I'm gonna rant about this real quick. You know me. Judeo-Christian values. For the last 2,000 years, Christians were trying to kill Jews for being degenerate, money-grubbing scum. Okay, what Judeo-Christian values are you talking about? Are you just talking about your fantasy in America in the 1950s or something like that, or are you talking about the fact that the first person the KKK fucking lynched in the 1920s was a Jewish man in the South? But are you talking about that? Or are you talking about no? There's no Judeo-Christian values. The more radical a Christian person gets, the more anti-Semitic they get. Right? The fact the Catholic Church teamed up with the fucking Nazis. Okay, let's not play this fucking game. So for you to go on stage, Ben Shapiro, and say Judeo-Christian values is fucking disgusting, and you should be ashamed of yourself. That's all I have to say about that. So, not much to say about it. But anyhow, here's Ben Shapiro. Scott's fucking killing me over there. Oh, why is it muted?
Fetus has moral value. Okay, so a first trimester fetus has moral value because whether you consider it a potential human life or a full-on human life, it has more value than just a cluster of cells.
First of all, can we just talk about the clear, like, circular reasoning and begging the question? Right, Perry? Did you pick it up?
Cluster of cells and fetus equivocation, or what?
No, he didn't make an argument. He just said,
why exactly do you think a first trimester fetus has moral value? Okay, so a first trimester fetus has moral value because whether you consider it a potential human life or a full-on human life, it has more value than just a cluster of cells.
Yeah, he didn't say why it has more value. He just said it does.
Oh, okay. He just said it does. He just said it does. He just said it does.
well, let's see if he elaborates on it.
Of course he's going to elaborate.
Yeah, this is his. You're right. You're supposed to elaborate before you give your conclusion, but yes, this is the pundit tactic, right?
It is, right? You bring your conclusion, and then you start talking, and your audience just hears, oh, really fancy words, philosophy I don't know. Ben Shapiro must be right.
If left to its natural processes, it will grow into a baby. So the real question is, where do you draw the line? So you're going to draw the line at the heartbeat, because it's very hard to draw the line at the heartbeat. There are people who are adults who are alive because of a pacemaker. They need some sort of outside force generating their heartbeat. You're going to do it based on brain function. Okay, well, what about people who are in a coma? Should we just kill them? The problem is, anytime you draw any line other than the inception of the child, you end up drawing a false line that can also be applied to people who are adults. So either human life has intrinsic value or it doesn't. I think we both agree that adult human life has intrinsic value. Can we start from that premise? I believe that sentience is what gives something moral value. If you are in a coma from which you may awake, can I stab you? No. I guess not. I mean, so but that's still potential sentience, and it's still a potential. I agree. It is potential sentience. You know what else is potential sentience? Being a fetus. Why exactly?
Okay, so if I may, one he also kind of assumed the whole intrinsic value of human life, which I don't want to take that position where I don't think human life is valuable. But why I think it's valuable is for reasons that, we beat to death. Intersubjectivity, right? We all talk with each other and we all agree on something, whatever the case may be. The second thing that I have an issue with is Occam's razor is great, sure. But what's wrong with saying sentience plus some other things that we all would agree on? And I get it, we won't all agree on that, but what's wrong with saying with the guy in the coma, sentience plus you've already been born or something like that? right?
You could, right? You could do that, right? You can set the line in many places, right? Like I know Destiny sets the line at like ability to have consciousness, right? But you first must be conscious, right? People will draw and make this line.
That's
right?
even better. That's even more the ability to have conscience, the ability to have sentience. If you're in a coma, well, you've had
You've
sentience.
already having the ability of sentience beforehand.
Sure.
Right? Like
sure.
Right?
Yeah. Perfect.
Right.
Perfect.
People, but I think that the problem here becomes, well, why sentience? Right? This is like the demarcation problem. Once again, what is the trait? And this is why I brought up in the title the veganism aspect, right? Because I feel like when vegans make moral arguments as opposed to like ethical ones, like it hurts the planet when we have too much meat. It's unhealthy for you. It's bad for the economy. Rather than those arguments, you go, well, name the trait. What is the point? What is the line? What is the demarcation by which an animal's life is valuable and an animal's life is not valuable, right? We kind of have that same argument happening again in the vegan space.
Yeah, and I guess my steel man to the vegan, I think Chase does really good at this, right?
Yeah,
Chase from Discord.
Chase is very good at this.
But I don't know if I've ever brought this up to him. I just figured I'd mention that. If I were to steel man a vegan and become vegan, rather, I would actually still want to eat meat, but I would want that cow or that chicken to live their life and die naturally. That's where the demarcation point would be, right? That would be the trait in which I say it's okay to eat animals. Even if they were industrially farmed.
Well, I want you to pause real quick, because
Yeah.
I agree with you, but we've moved it now of when it's valuable, when its life is valuable, right? Because that's the different question where they're asking. You're assuming its life is valuable, so I'm not gonna kill it. I'm just gonna let it die and then I'll eat it because eating is not valuable.
Is the animal valuable itself? Is that the question?
Yeah, like where is the point? You can just say, oh, if all life is valuable and you consider an animal alive, then it's valuable. Then you can't kill it, right? That still stands. That's still there. You can't run away from that demarcation problem. But
I mean, without going into a huge social science system of, well, cows feed this many people, therefore that's a trait of valuableness. This animal on the food chain is beneficial for reasons X, Y, and Z. So all animals below that on the food chain, we don't have to mark as valuable. Yeah, it get very esoteric and complex. Nonsense.
Mm-hmm.
There is, what did he say? There is value in the death of animals. In the
Okay,
death
any
or
animal.
in the death or in the life.
I
There's
mean, I think Scott
there's
is saying-
definitely value in the death, right? I would say,
Sure, right?
because you could feed people,
right?
for example.
Like we might say that a Native American tribe that needs a buffalo to like survive kills the buffalo. They need to kill it, right? So what's the moral argument? So this is why I'm bringing this up. The reason why I specifically brought the fact that veganism and abortion share this common trait, I think they're both making the exact same error. It's the same, right? I think when Ben Shapiro said in the video, I want to show it one time. I want to show that part one more time. I think he specifically highlights the point.
First trimester fetus has moral
I hate the one that
value.
you scroll.
Okay, so a first trimester fetus has moral value because whether you consider it a potential human life or a full-on human life, it has more value than just a cluster of cells. If left to its natural processes, it will grow into a baby. So the real question is, where do you draw the line?
The real question is, where do you draw the line? He's not wrong. That is the real question. But what this does is they're already instantiating the paradigm of how to answer this question. They're asking you to find a demarcation point. You can't do it. You're not going to find a demarcation point. That's the problem with thinking about this with a demarcation point of at which point the life becomes valuable.
So this is surely a question of normativity. And don't we have that issue of trying to find the demarcation point with everything? How is it that we can look at an is empirically and then derive an ought?
Correct.
Unless it's epistemologically agreed with, for example, or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? So we're going to have this demarcation problem with literally every normative issue that we have to deal with in legislation or humanity.
I mean, even in taxonomy, right? At which point does an animal is now a new animal. It's right. They say, oh, it can't mate, but sometimes it's not true. Some animals, right? There's always exceptions to the demarcation. I think that the point then becomes that when we ask the question of whether we should, like, is it morally right or wrong to do abortion, is not a question that we're going to just be able to answer, right? It's a question that we're going to have to recognize that we're going to have different answers for. Right? You're going to have a different answer. I'm going to have a different answer. Other people in society are going to have a different answer. But these different answers are not necessarily going to be congruent or recognized by other people. Oh, let's bring Thomas in. Thomas has jumped in. Hello, Thomas. What do you think about what we're talking about so far? You definitely have a good insight about
demarcation problem. Well, it's the same thing as what I've been talking about in the philosophy of science. What's science? What's not science? That kind of applies here, since the science matters in this instance, right? Not just Ben Shapiro's opinion, correct? Or his argumentation.
Yeah, I would appeal to science.
Medical science is what I would appeal to.
Yeah, right, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
At least for in terms of like ethical considerations, because they do have applied ethics in the medical fields.
Yeah, bioethics or something like that.
Bioethics, you're right.
Yeah.
You right, sucker.
Can I get raw?
You can do whatever you want, Scott. Hop on
I don't know
in
what
here.
that means. Can I get raw?
Well, he's raw toast. That's what he came in as, is raw toast.
Get in here,
What
Scott.
is that?
And
oh my god, we're gonna bring Scott in.
Isn't raw toast just bread? Like,
Scott's in the house.
Scott won't throw on his camera though, so
yeah, whatever. He'll just be a pathetic little
baby
circle.
Scott, turn your camera on.
Raw toast is just bread.
Yes, he puts on the camera. Let's go.
It's all right. That's good. Looks good.
Oh
Looks
my god,
good.
just getting the boomer up thing.
That's the beauty.
Boomer.
Raw toast.
Okay, but no, I want us to funnel the conversation though in a specific direction. Scott, we're getting total neck, all chin, right? Like,
oh,
it's okay. His chin is sexy. Don't worry about it.
Let me fix this. Hold on.
Hey, there we go. Much better. No, so let's focus in the conversation. But why did I want to bring up like abortion and the way I was talking about it and the like? It's specifically because like I want to bring in the demarcation problem because I don't think that there is an answer of when a fetus's life becomes valuable, just out there in the world. There is no. It's not like you're gonna find a value in a specific spot. We're not going to be able to do that. So like in a discussion between me and you and Scott, it's just going to be, we're going to have to agree on like an intersubjective fact.
Yep.
So when we ask the question, should we have abortion or not? I think we're asking a legal question. I think we're asking a rights question. Do we have a right for this problem? Do we have a right for bodily autonomy here? Is it the choice of a mother or is it the choice of the community? That's the questions we're asking.
Remember the old argument. Do you have the right as a 3-year-old to knock your mother out and use her body to filter your blood?
Yeah, well, that's like the violinist argument, right? So if you woke up and you just had a violinist like attached to your body, do you have sort of
yes, exactly. Yes, the violinist argument. Yes.
Yep. So there's actually something that happened in Texas. This lady she worked in the Department of Corrections, and she said, "Hey, I think I'm having a baby right now. I'm having contractions." They didn't let her leave, so now it's going to court and saying, "Okay, now the Texas Department of Corrections killed this child because they didn't let him go to medical treatment." And this is sort of the downfall of treating fetuses as actual people, right? And so now Texas, the state that says, "Hey, abortion shouldn't be allowed past 6 weeks because this is a person." Now they're saying, "No, well, that wasn't actually a viable person because they weren't born yet. So the Texas Department of Corrections.
I mean, but then again, but that sounds like horseshit, right? That sounds like horseshit because then again, if I have a wife and we have a baby, right, whatever it is, and she's 4 months pregnant, and let's say someone in the street fucking starts punching her and kills my fetus, I want them in fucking prison, right?
Yes,
I really do. So
yes. But this is the sticky place,
and not for punching my wife, but for fucking ending the pregnancy, right?
Yes,
like,
correct. Yeah. So at that point it would be considered murder. This is the sticky part of what's going on in Texas, because here's somebody saying, like, I wanted to have a baby, and the Texas Department of Corrections didn't let me leave work to go and get medical attention to take care of this baby. And the child, she was like 8 months pregnant. And now Texas is arguing, like, oh no, because that baby wasn't born and they're not the person yet. They don't have rights yet. At the same time, with the abortion argument.
Oh yeah, of course, it's hypocrisy. But let's not focus on the hypocrisy. This is going to be a blanket thing, right? The state doesn't want to be held responsible. They also want to pass their own agenda to stay in power. This is obviously like gonna happen. I think that, and let's think about it. If we recognize that we're not going to get we're not going to find a demarcation here, and we're not going to be able to agree to a demarcation. We might be able to agree to a demarcation, and that's fine. We can do that. But now the question then becomes: is this proposed demarcation we have agreed on, is that within the scope of the community to decide for the woman, or is it up for the woman to decide? Is it up for the family to decide? Who gets to set the demarcation here?
Correct.
In a way, like we can say, oh, the will of the people, for example, the majority. But what if if we start playing that, like who sets the demarcation? The majority could decide that black people, the demarcation point for humanity is at the moment that you're not black.
Well, why don't we just do it the way that we do with everything else within legislation, and we have 8 people and a judge decide?
Well, didn't we see what happened with the Supreme Court, where it was constitutionally protected, and then they just decided that it no longer was, even though previous courts did decide on it?
But I'm saying, like, every instance in it, I mean, I don't know, maybe abortions will be happening left and right. I don't know, but what if, it's like, who decides? Is it the mother? Is it the family? Or is it the people? Why?
Give me the best argument for why the mother should decide, Dandan.
Oh, the best argument. I mean, I have a complicated position on it. I mean, the reason why because the mother gets to decide the demarcation of what happens between her and her body, and her like values about the fetus. Like, you and I, can recognize. I mean, let's put it this way. Intuitively, I would say 9 months you can't just abort the baby.
Sure. Yeah.
Right. I can also say like 3 months. Sure. Whatever. Go at it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think that I don't see that as like a problem, right? The same way we talked about the Hawaii forest fires, that's not the reason why the forest fires happen, right? Women aren't aborting their baby at 9 months because, oops, I don't feel like it anymore, right? Like, that's not happening. Women aren't aborting. Yeah, exactly.
They don't. I don't think anybody would let it get that far if they didn't want their child. I mean, 9 months of torture, So
yeah. So that's not a problem that we're even dealing with. It's just not showing up in reality.
Yeah.
So I think Scott pulled up the statistics one time that it's around, I think how much, it's like almost 0.5% are even trying to get abortion past 6 months or something, or 5 months.
It's extremely small.
So at that point, I would say, yeah, for me, that would be the strongest argument for why it's in the hands of the mother. It's the mother, her doctor, and her family. Like, that's who makes these decisions. These family units get to make.
That's what I agree with. I mean, that's what I would say, because I trust medical science to make a better decision than me, the mother, or society.
But science is making a normative claim. You're letting science I let science make my descriptive claims. I don't let them make my normative claims.
Oh, Casey got us the facts. 98% of abortions happen in the first two trimesters.
Yeah.
First two trimesters.
Within 6 months.
89% of the 89 happen in the first trimester.
That's the important one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
wait.
I think you would see a higher percentage of that in the number once a woman doesn't have her first period. right? When she should have it, when she should have it, that's the point that she's going to know, hey, I might be pregnant, and that's 1 month out. So
yeah, 1 month. It between average probably 2 weeks to a month and a half or something like that.
Yep.
What was Perry saying? Perry, what were you saying about normativity?
Well, what I was saying is, I forget exactly what you said. You'd let science decide. You're like, oh, I'd let medical.
I would let. I mean, of course, I would let the woman and the science decide together. The woman and the doctor, right? As long as the doctor's not a shit doctor, which I mean, there are shit doctors out there that have no fucking idea what they're doing.
But where are you getting this? Where is the doctor getting their moral compass from in regards to science? Aren't they? I mean, they could tell them
whatever's
what people
taught in
usually
bioethics.
do.
Whatever's taught in bioethics is usually what they're going to do medically. Like, there's probably, if we go look online right now, there's probably a shitload of literature and scientific papers about the ethics, the bioethics of abortion. I bet money, how many, Don, could there possibly be? Thousands?
So the doctor will give like one argument in the bioethics journals and then the other argument, and then have the patient decide, kind of like give them informed consent on a good decision.
Maybe so.
Okay.
I mean, maybe
yeah, of course. They talk to them about the risks.
Education.
Right.
They really say about the risks of the abortion. They ask if the baby, the baby gonna feel it. Like, all mothers ask these questions, right?
Yeah.
People ask these questions, and the doctor might say, "Hey, I don't do abortions at this stage. I just don't find them. I can't do them." Like, that's also a thing. A doctor can refuse to do that. They don't owe you their labor.
I do want to hog the mic just for one more second, and I do want to maybe give
real quick before we move on. I want to say that we have the new name of this show is, instead of the Royal Rumble, it is the Peasant Brawl. Right? So
nice.
That's how we're doing.
I fucking love this, so it's all good.
The Peasant Brawl.
I am a bronze man, so
I can't believe I'm talking about abortion. That blows my mind.
I know. Thomas hopped in here for politics. I was like hell yeah.
Well, it's the demarcation problem that got you in, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was really. I was like, oh, it's.
I do have a question. Have any
well,
of you guys...
here, hold on. Okay.
No, but Perry's got to do his thing.
Go ahead, Scott. Go ahead. Scott needs to get it up. Go ahead.
Have any of you guys ever actually had to be in a position where you aborted a baby?
No, luckily.
No, I've never been in that position.
So I've definitely taken.
When I was in college, it was definitely the right decision to make. I was 18 years old. And I could not have taken care of a kid.
Yep. Yeah. No, I probably would have done the same thing, honestly. And I've been in positions where I've definitely gotten the morning after pill, 7 or 8 times.
Only twice for me. Only twice for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, I definitely probably would have been in a position similar to you, Scott, if maybe that didn't happen. That's what I like to tell myself. So I did want to ask, my positions are always tentative, but trying to look at both instances, we talk about, before the trimester, before X amount of, how, whatever they say, whatever science says gives consciousness. You pro-choicers would agree that that fetus will have consciousness most likely at a high.
Sure, I would say that, of course, it might have consciousness.
Hold on, Trev.
Just deafen.
Does Travis want to come in?
You're gonna have to deafen Scott if there's other people talking, not just mute on Discord.
Yeah. Let me message Travis. He can come into the show. We're having a little conversation. Keep going. But yeah, of course, the fetus might have consciousness. It might even have sentience, honestly.
Right. So is that considered at all when, obviously if you get it done in the first week or two, it's like it doesn't have consciousness, but it's going to. No? Yes?
You mean it has consciousness, but it will eventually have sentience? What do you mean?
Whatever you want to call it, consciousness or sentience, it will eventually have that, even though the fetus doesn't have it at that point.
Well, like they were saying in that argument that we got shown a minute ago with Ben Shapiro, a lot of people do use sentience as like the supervening quality of consciousness. Like,
yes,
you
sure.
know, a fucking hogfish has confidence, you know, so, or whatever they're called, the little.
So we'll call it sentience. That's fine.
Sure.
A 2-week-old fetus at a high rate of probability will have sentience, right?
2-week fetus? I don't know if they'll have I have no idea.
No. They're going to, like, at some point in the future, if you don't yeet it into the void, right?
Sure.
That's the point that I'm making.
So potential.
So yeah, is that, and I'm asking, is this not factored in when just like, oh, I'm a in the moment kind
Perry,
of
but
person?
if you ejaculate and come in your girl, and you know you're like, oh no, there is potential that the sperm is going to meet the ovum. Like the potentiality is whatever. At that point, it's like saying, wow, you know, there was a potential for let's just say a massively high probability. We're not even going to talk about a super high probability that if we do in vitro fertilization, it's going to make a baby. So are you not going to do it? Are you going to stop it in a way?
It depends if my intent is I'm having sex knowing that I could have a baby. Let's say even if she's on birth control, she has an IUD, I'm using a condom.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it's called? IUD? Something like that. And I'm wearing a condom. I'm still have to know responsibly, this is within my moral ethics, right, that I could potentially impregnate her and have a child, right?
Yeah.
Which will have sentience.
Sure.
So this is where it gets difficult for me because should we have people be more careful? Like, let's say they're on birth control and they get pregnant. I can perhaps see a case, yes, where that's fine to get an abortion. But it's like if you're just willy-nilly throwing yourself, throwing it out there, you get pregnant and you just don't want to be pregnant because you weren't thinking about the consequences. Is this an ought that we should abide by? I'm not sure it is.
I don't know.
I'm not sure that it's not, but
I mean, personally, I would. So this is why I said that I can give you the argument for the pro-choice position of like it's the choice of the woman, and I can do that and give that to you. But my position is a little more complicated than that, because I do believe that if we have a woman who is got an abortion and gets another abortion, and she's like on a third abortion, we might have to tell ourselves, what is happening here? Why are we having a failure where she doesn't have access to birth control? Why are we having a failure that this has become a source of birth control? Right? She's going through this procedure. Might necessarily be healthier for her. But I'm
they should be giving out birth control like it's fucking Pez.
Sure, absolutely.
Seriously.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I would, again, rape, many cases of incest, perhaps, depending on what your thoughts are on incest.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not being financially stable. These things, I would say, yeah, it makes sense, right? We can use our reason and get to a conclusion. Yeah, okay, maybe we shouldn't have this baby, even though it will have potential sentience, probably. And harming the woman, of course, right? I would prioritize.
But Casey asked you a question, Perry. She asked you, how are you going to prove rape?
Whatever, yeah. I mean,
do you know how long it takes to prove that?
Yeah, that's a good point.
More than 9 months, I would imagine.
Could we prioritize those kind of issues and whatnot? And
I don't think we can. I think the justice system is already so flawed. It's already so backed up. I just don't. And this is why I'm saying, like, the way in which, like, so for example, in Israel, they have like a different, like a vada, I don't know, like a council, like a psychologist, a rabbi, or something, and some other thing, and they kind of go in front of them and tell them, "Hey, I need to get an abortion." They approve an abortion. At least maybe that's how it was when my parents were kids. I might be wrong about this. And they kind of, and most of the time, they 100% of the time approve it. For example, but that could also be a barrier of shame, where if the society doesn't explain it, like they're less.
I have an answer for this.
Yeah,
we could let the person get an abortion. They say it was because of rape. If they end up lying, then they have a punishment. I don't know what that punishment would be.
Wait, but just because she can't prove rape doesn't mean she wasn't raped. Just means the person is found not guilty. You can't prove that she wasn't being raped.
Sure. Then
right?
maybe we'll add that into the punishment in a way where it's like not that bad of a thing, but there is this consequence and whatnot. I mean, sure, I get it. Do you and I get that injustice, but do you see the injustice of perhaps people abusing that? It's like, oh, I was raped, get it out of me. You know what I mean?
But that's the thing. If we're talking about just the ability for life, even the ability for life, every single semen that comes out of your cock when you fucking orgasm.
Casey says 90% of rapes aren't what she said?
Yeah.
Convicted.
Yeah. Convicted.
Well, wait. How do you know? How does she know? How do they know what the actual number is if it wasn't convicted? What criterion is she using?
Well, I guess they're probably they do surveys and they just believe them that, hey, were you raped? Yeah. Do you really think that many women are just lying about being raped?
Let's let Scott get in.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Scott.
Like every egg and every semen is the possibility of quote unquote human life. Like how are you going to start to regulate that?
Yeah, well, it's and this is where like this response.
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry.
Did you want to finish?
I would say like it's directly related to this same thing. So we're talking about like somebody had now there's this thing that's happening that has the ability of human life, right? Regardless of the fact that the mass majority of inseminated eggs end in like miscarriages, or they just have like women have a period and it's gone. The mass majority are just gone, right? The mass majority of eggs that are.
Well, so what's your question? What was the question exactly? How do I know?
Well, I'm pointing out that the mass.
Oh, the sperm.
Like the sperm egg, even when sperm inseminates egg, the mass majority never even ends up in being a life form, right?
That's and that's just part of the chances that you're taking when you're having sex, right? You're using
but it would be that thing to say that if we ended it, it wouldn't necessarily be it's ending a life.
Say that again. You're kind of you're going like in and out, so I can.
Yeah, your voice on your microphone is cutting out your words a little bit. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, sorry. God damn it! Why am I getting like feedback and shit?
Yeah, you're not using headphones that way. You figure that out. I'm gonna push you out. Figure out some headphones and something, and then jump right back in. Okay.
Yeah, so I think what Scott was saying is that when you ejaculate, there is a chance to impregnate someone, right? Is that maybe a good steel man of what he was saying? Yeah,
yes.
I get that, and I understand. I feel as though there is a responsibility, perhaps, based on this whole premise that I mentioned, that there's this chance of sentient life. If you have any moral duty for current,
sure, but that's different than if it hasn't been sentient yet. I don't care, right? You can just make that if it's already had the sentience, then we care.
Can you
if it didn't have it yet?
Can you prove that you're sentient?
I mean, can I prove that I'm sentient? I don't know. I don't even know how to go about that, which is why I don't even care. Which is why I don't try to ask the question about what's the demarcation point. Is it sentience? Is it consciousness? I go, we're not going to be able to deal with that. We're not going to find the demarcation between a life is valuable. So I go, okay, sure. We can try to have this debate. And maybe, I was speaking with my younger brother. And my younger brother, like we were talking about this on the way back from Albany today, actually. And in the cars, we're speaking about it. He's telling me, well, fine, yeah, whatever. But the laws and the Constitution are all based on morality, right? It's morality all the way down at the end of the day. So to say, is it legal or is it the role of government? We're basically doing the same thing.
That's what I was going to say earlier.
But in my position, like, we're not finding a demarcation point. We're not saying at what point does the government get to use. It's a different question. But the point that he said is that, well, a lot of times engaging in this argument of where's the trait is a tool basically for us to actually have this conversation, to try to start shifting the opinion of people who do believe in it, right? Who do believe in the same idea, or are able to like have the argument. And I was telling him, hey, I think the problem is that we're even asking about the demarcation. That's the failure of this of trying to argue sentience, of trying to argue this is the point, life is valuable. We're just not going to be able to do it.
Well,
There's always going to be holes.
ooh.
There's always going to be a problem. And it's the same thing that vegans do. At what point is an animal's life, a human life valuable? And what is the difference? What is the trait?
But I've brought up how we hedge that. I've figured out the is-ought gap.
You figured out the is-ought gap? Okay.
Yeah, and I learned it from you. It's called intersubjectivity.
No, that's not an is-ought gap. That is how we simply say, oh, this is what people think is the norm. This is the norm. This is the norm.
Yeah, it's
but
tentative.
It doesn't mean that
it's
the norm is therefore justified.
It's not a capital T truth. It's tentative, right? And once we get more information, then we should change based on our reasoning, usually within science and philosophy, much of it, on how we should do this. Now, Dandan, do you think that do you think that sentient beings are valuable? Current
Do I
ones.
think that sentient beings
current ones?
I think some yes and some not.
Who's not?
A chicken.
Okay. Featherless bipeds that are sentient. Do you believe those are valuable? All of them?
Depends which one you're talking about and when you're talking about.
Not monkeys. Sorry, I didn't want to. That was actually a bad way to do that. Humans. Guys, are you going to give me the demarcation problem
during a time in war? No, I don't think that a human life is as valuable. Not a time in war,
okay.
Right? It really depends on the context. I don't think there is a thing that by which we determine the value of a human being.
When we can preserve the life of a sentient being, do you think we ought do that?
Depending on what the consequences are.
Well, when we can, based on there are no consequences, right?
Why not? For me, that's a yes.
Murder. It's essentially murder.
Personally, yeah.
Right. You shouldn't murder unless you're held up by some
And
terrorists.
this is what I was saying. We're looking in intersubjective facts. There's no justification. It's just what they are. It's a descriptive term.
Yeah, they changed. They're tentative.
Yeah.
Let's just real quick. The intersubjectivity is just me subjectively recognizing the subjectivity of another or another group of people that we don't share subjective experience, but that we share in the fact that we have a subjective experience, right?
Sure, and that's why sometimes I like to say epistemologically agreed upon, rather, since intersubjectivity just kind of talks about that rather than the agreement portion of things. So, that's fair enough. I guess what I was getting at, I was trying to get you in a trap to say, it is valuable. And then I was going to say, do you think that potential sentience would be? And depending on, I don't know what you said there.
Depending on the context. It's just depending on the context.
What if, so,
like when I was saying earlier, I don't care about potential sentience. I was basically just making a not a straw man, but I was constructing like a devil's advocate position of this is what people can just respond back to this, and then you just end up talking about the demarcation ad nauseum nonstop because now that's the argument we're having now, and this is the argument in the public sphere. This is what people are talking about. And I think this is why they can't resolve the issues because just asking the wrong question.
I do agree with your brother, though, that politics is ethics writ large. So
I don't disagree. I
thought you took a more political realist stance, but
no. I mean, when we say it's like, should people have a right to self-determination? Well, you're making a normative statement. You're setting the rules for the game, right?
Yeah.
About what we can, and of course, morality and what we think is right and what we think is wrong, what we think is fair and what we think is just falls into that equation. But I don't think that's the same thing as when we're saying, so let's put it this way. Like, if we say we all agree that government is there not just as a, an expression of the people, but also as an entity that guides and molds the civic participation, how people move throughout life. Like for example, if 30% or 40% of the population decide that they no longer want democracy, should the government just be like, well, you know what? Fine. If the majority doesn't want democracy anymore, let them vote and get rid of their ability to vote. Right? That's just like self-contradictory. I would say, no, the government should be like, absolutely not. Here are some tanks. You're not overthrowing democracy. The government will preserve your right to vote, even if you don't want your own right to vote. right? Like I would say I would go. That's like how far I would go.
Yeah, the definition of democracy changes all the time based on how people call it, right? Isn't that what you said? The
Well,
contradiction?
democracy itself is just the rule of the majority, so that idea wouldn't change, but maybe how we played out that idea.
Yeah, like for example, let's say we had an idea that we're gonna run the show democratically, right? That's like the rule of how we run the show. And me and Thomas decide that we no longer want to run it democratically, and we're going to get a vote to get rid of the democratic process of this show, right?
Okay.
What we have done is like we put like democracy and like its self-determination in like contradiction with itself.
I still think it could terminate though, and it just turns.
I'm not saying it can't terminate, but I'm just saying it would no longer be that.
Right.
Would that mean that we were in then turn making Perry dictator if you and I gave up our right to vote?
Or maybe we make Perry us the dictators because we took away Perry's right to vote.
It becomes anarchy. It becomes anarchy and will to power. No.
It becomes a different type of will to power. But my point in saying this is that, and this my brother and I actually talked about this for a long time, is that while that is a normative statement that democracy is good and we should be in a democratic way, I don't think that like once we've made the rules, all of a sudden now that just means that the entire system is arbitrary and just like whatever, just as valid as saying when should someone abort a baby or not, or what is the demarcation point for justifying. Because we're not asking a demarcation point. We're not saying at what point does the government not do this. We're saying, oh, there's a clear inherent contradiction in the concept of democracy, and we move on.
I think I actually agree. I think we agree.
My brother and I also ended up agreeing at the end.
Because I think that the only thing that I would want, that another ought, like a meta ought, that I'd want, is that people use reason with themselves to give their own demarcation point on if they should have the abortion or not. I think that as long as they have that kind of meta philosophy and are taught that, rather than just doing it off of pure sentiment, like they just feel like getting an abortion, they don't want to have a big tummy or whatever it is.
Okay.
I'd have to question that person. Not saying that it's right or wrong, but
how many people getting an abortion are questioning the ethics of it?
I would hope a lot.
I would hope that too, but I want to know the number.
I don't know.
I don't know if we can find out that
I actually have no idea.
We can refer back to statistics earlier that most abortions do not happen late term. Not even close to.
Sure.
Less than half a percentage. Over 89% of them happen within the first trimester. The other rest up to 98% happen within the second and first trimester. And then you have 2%.
People are most likely listening to their doctors then.
And to their moral compasses, whatever they feel is right?
Sure. Exactly.
Interesting. Aren't we still presupposing in that case that if so far as we get it before the first trimester, it's okay?
Well, we're not presupposing it.
Yeah, no, that the people who are doing it, right?
But the whole argument is that it's up to them, right?
Yes, as long as they know. Well, I live in Florida, Dandan. Okay, so my pessimism of intelligence amongst people it's very pessimistic, right?
That is the thing, is like Florida's always considered the trash can of America, but it's like the second largest state in population. You know what I mean? Like, so a lot of things are going to happen in Florida.
Yeah. And I don't think when people are getting those abortions, I feel like there's at least a handful who are doing it willy-nilly, not based on their own categorical imperative that they create for themselves.
I mean, they could just be a super slut and not care if they're getting pregnant or not care how many fetuses they're aborting, or could be that kind of situation.
One last thing.
So the question, we go back to the question: is this demarcation point one that ought to be decided by the community or by the people who are dealing with it?
The family dealing with it. I would
agree with that, and that's the pro-choice position.
I think we're all in agreement. Could you make the opposite argument?
I think that the opposite argument
in community. Could you make the argument?
I think the argument would be something like this: the community has a vested interest in its population, and one of the goals of society and of government is to ensure its ability to continue its population growth, continue to support that population growth so they can maintain and extend their freedoms or their beliefs of what is right and wrong in society in such a way. Like,
But we would agree this would infringe on personal liberty and like medical science and all kinds of things, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the same thing, Don. Like how I say I hope they'd have a good philosophy behind their own decision. I'd hope the Congress would have a good philosophy behind their decision also. Just to steelman the other side, as Thomas.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. So I think like where the vested interest from, like I said, let's say a woman is getting abortion after abortion after abortion after abortion. The question is not how do we penalize her? What is happening? This is the case. Why does she not have access to birth control? Because abortions are more and more expensive, right?
Make America Florida.
It's down 15%. Right, so that's gonna. I mean, so
Make America Florida again. That's just. I'm sorry.
So DeSantis is down 15 points from what I take it. You're saying? I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Oh man,
I wouldn't be surprised.
Everyone
loves
DeSantis.
Dude, that picture of DeSantis with the white boots and the super tight clothes on always makes me laugh.
Giga Chad.
Of course.
Giga
hysterical.
You all were a sperm at one point, and I just want you to put that perspective as a sperm that doesn't have sentience, sure, but just imagine beating the other 100 billion and then getting yeeted back into the noumena which you derived from after that journey.
Ooh, big words, big brain. Of course. You know when I say Jordan Peterson, biggest brain in the world, facetiously, when I tell Perry it, I'm not saying it facetiously.
Might be meta sarcasm, but
say facetiously like 8 times fast.
Facetiously.
It just starts sounding like nonsense.
Okay.
It starts sounding like nonsense, you forget it. But go ahead.
I've been live for like about an hour and some. Let's do another 30 minutes because I had a super long weekend. By the way, guys, go out hiking. You feel so much better afterwards. It just feels absolutely amazing. I feel great. I'm tired, but I feel fantastic.
Can we ask if chopped chicken if Scott's good on his audio? Can y'all ask him?
Yeah, are you good on your audio, Scott? Doesn't seem like he's good on his audio. Well, the last thing I wanted to talk about, and I think Thomas, you would really appreciate this conversation, is about art, and it could be about music. So I went to a symphony this weekend. Oh yes, everyone subscribe, turn on notifications, blah blah blah. Same YouTube bullshit. It's very important because people forget. But I went to the Philadelphia Philharmonic was playing upstate, and we went to this show, and the show opened up with this avant-garde piece of music, which literally, to tell you, was one of the most boring pieces of music I've listened to, like just out of like excitement. Very, very boring. But like intellectually, if you really want to sit there and decipher what are they talking about, and just kind of like being in this trance state while thinking about everything that they're going through, sure. Like when I say it was boring, they were literally just like playing with different like harmonies and different like sounds, and like just literally sitting there like granite, rock, like in opera voices, or like naming like all the different extinct animals and going through like geologic periods in this really avant-garde way. And then we had an intermission. And after the intermission, we come back, and the Philharmonic Orchestra plays Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring, which comes from like a specific opera about like gods and whatever it might be, Norse gods. I mean, when this show was first aired, I think in France at the time, it caused riots in the streets. That soundtrack that he came up with, it was so revolutionary for its time. And that juxtaposition between the two was very like, wow, I just sat through this very slow and boring avant-garde piece, so super sad avant-garde piece, but the death of all the extinct animals, and then into a piece that's super exciting about like art or whatever it is. How did that just pop up on my screen?
You want me to show that?
Oh yeah, sure, yeah. Bring that up. Bring that. That's a video.
I wonder if the music will even work, but let's see.
Yeah, that was amazing. By the way, the second part was phenomenal, full of energy, excitement, loud. It was just magnificent, and he made it so much better. But that was exciting, right? That's easy to enjoy. Should art be enjoyable? Is my question, or can art be boring and absurd and uninteresting and still be like valuable and in a sense conceptually enjoyable? I know Thomas has a lot to say about this, probably.
Yeah, I mean, it can be boring. It can especially be absurd. It can be uninteresting because that's a matter of preference, right? So, I mean, aesthetics is the nature of beauty and ugliness, the nature of taste itself. Then you get to the philosophy of art, which is the intention of the creationer as opposed to the criticism and expression of the person viewing and taking the creation, the art. So, yeah, I mean, art can definitely be disgusting and vile and grotesque and still be artful, right?
I would agree. I think that we need to get comfortable with recognizing that art is there to evoke not only emotion but evoke thinking. And if you see an art piece and you feel grossed out by it or you feel uneasy about it, well, if that's what it's trying to make you feel and it's completing that goal, then it's doing its job. Just by not.
Let's say just for the hell of it, and I kind of do. The Mona Lisa's boring to me. Is it still art?
I mean, yeah, of course it's still art.
Right.
Yeah, of course.
Well, that's what I thought you were getting at. Is like if it's boring.
Is it good art? Is it good art? Is what I was trying to say. Is it good art? My bad.
Well, I guess no. I don't think you. Yeah, I think
boring might be the better thing to say because I think that's more of a part of the issue. Because I don't know if art, if it is if something is conceived of as art, can it be boring by definition? I mean, I don't know how that would.
Yeah. You could attach the predicate boring to art, I would say.
Sure.
What I was referring to, Dandan, is in Discord when you brought up the topics. I can read it, but it made me think, like, are you viewing or creating art as a means to an end, or are you doing it for its own sake? So when you mentioned
very
that
Kantian.
it may be boring, well, maybe that's just an end that you're attaching, like a superficial one. You should just be pure experiencing what that is. And I mean, I think no matter what, you're going to learn from it in one way or another. So it is going to invoke some sort of knowledge or intellect. Take that as you will.
No, okay.
So yes, for the first question, sure. But is good art boring? Right? Like,
no, I don't think so. But I'm also a stickler for the fact that there might be, like, take for instance music. Everything is on a scale, a normal distribution, most things, and that's the same thing with music. I've listened to so many goddamn albums. There is a fuckload of average ass music, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then it's kind of like we can even go to films. Like we can all name like popular films that are also critically acclaimed, right?
Yes.
Like Saving Private Ryan, Godfather Part 2, stuff like that. If I just throw names out there, right? People just rave about it on both sides. This is all about the philosophy of art. Can good art be boring? I mean, I say no reflexively. But could I look at the Michelangelo's painting of, is that Dionysus or what? I don't remember.
Well, didn't he build the churches and all the paintings? Sure,
Michelangelo didn't he paint that? Was that Michelangelo?
Sistine Chapel, yeah.
Sistine Chapel, right.
Yeah.
If I looked at that, can it be intrinsically boring? No. There are a lot of people who go in there and, like, atheists and stuff, and look at it and be like, wow, that's really, really boring. I don't care about that at all. It's zero interest to me. But
That's exactly it. Like it's subjective. So to say,
But what if it was intentionally created to be boring?
Yes, see, I don't know. That's the hard question. Like good art, would we consider good art boring? Damn, it's a hard question.
I don't think, I think the intention matters, but with this question specifically, it's about the agent. It has to be. Is good art boring? Good and boring are coming from your perspective. There is no capital B boring or capital G good as Plato thought.
Correct.
It is your subjective experience. And so no, I think saying that good art is boring would be the same thing as saying bachelors are married men. It would just be a contradiction.
That's what you think. You think so within the concept of good, there's not the concept of boring.
That's kind of what I said reflexively. You know what I mean? So I mean,
But then again, for example,
not all the time. Maybe there's a few things that. Well, I can think of being just like mindless, being a monk, Buddhist, mindless, and I see a piece of art that's just boring as shit, where I'm staring at a puddle, as Sam Harris likes to say, and you just become enlightened because you're just staring at this boring, otherwise boring thing, right?
Sure.
But
and maybe that's the whole point of the art.
Could be
to evoke boringness,
and
to
then we
evoke
can
nothingness.
Move the intent of the artist in there. Sure,
correct.
I'm fine with that. Yeah.
So maybe maybe
that way, when you say it that way, Dandan, I'm kind of with you. You can like imbue your work with this art, this piece imbues a sense of I feel like boredom. I feel as if this, like maybe a picture
it's
of
dragging on. It's slow. It's repetitive.
Yeah, maybe a picture of an old man. Maybe a picture of an old man on a porch with his dog sitting next to him, just rocking back and forth. It's not supposed to be exciting. It's supposed to show you, hey, boredom. Hey, things like that.
Let me try to find something. Let me
try to find something that's like boredom art. I don't really know.
Yeah, if the intent of the artist was to make it boring and it's boring to you, then yeah, I guess it's good art.
Yeah, if you look at it and say metaphorically, I can see how this defines boring itself.
Even then though, good is such a subjective term that even if you do think it's boring and that was the intent of the artist, you still might not think that it's good, even though his intent was accomplished. But
I don't know. Something to consider.
I'm trying to find a very like avant-garde minimalist music.
Just get like a piece of red, a red square, or like a.
If I remembered what that piece of what we
show
saw,
something visual. Show something visual.
The Mona Lisa is boring to me.
Mona Lisa is super boring, but when you get really close to it, it's like supposedly super complex. I mean,
know. But the popularity of the Mona Lisa actually is not from its art style. It's from the fact that it was stolen in like the 1920s.
Yeah, some political thing
and
about
found
it.
again.
Yes.
Yeah. So, with that case, so let me try to find a thing. What did we watch? Let me look up I'll find exactly what it is. I'll find who performed if I look it up.
Do it. Scott, you got your audio fixed yet, big bro?
Scott going once, Scott going twice. No, okay, so I'll find something else. A boring piece of music. Okay, well, let's bring this into Dada. Let's look into Dada art, for example.
You love that.
I do love Dada art because Dada art exactly tried to deal with like notions of like rationalism in art, where it's like it needs to be like representative of reality. It needs to be like reason focused and like coherent and make sense. And they were like, no, we're literally just gonna take a toilet and put it on a mannequin. Like,
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Wouldn't that still be reason driven? That the purpose was to try and make it unreasonable. There's still like a reason behind it.
I mean, there's a telos, but the telos is to no rationale, no reason,
okay.
like entirely like.
That's fair.
Okay, so Jackson Pollock
as well.
His paintings are wonderful, by the way. I have one as my background on my computer. It's amazing.
I love Jack. I also like Monet.
It invokes so many things in me. It's the opposite of boring. It's like completely engrossing.
Some people look at it and say, "Oh, there's nothing here," right?
Yeah, I know, because it's like how they look at amazing music and hear noise. I mean, seriously, a lot of people are like that. Go on all the music message boards I've been on. It just sounds like noise, and you're like, "Oh my god, man!" Like I've heard people say that like Miles Davis's music, like some of his stuff, like In a Silent Way, sounds like noise.
Here, so this is like let me just look up. This is some like Dada art examples. So like,
yeah, that's cool.
Sure.
This was considered like Bolshevik and like Jewish art at some points throughout history. Like it's like
I actually like that last one. Go back to
this one.
No, that one. What the hell is all that?
I don't know if this is actual Dada. It's someone's art project.
Yeah, a lot of these are probably just like pop Dada. Like
this is one. Here's one. This was like really popular.
Yeah. There was a dolly painting up there that would give a good contrast.
Yeah.
The clocks painting that melt over the edge of the.
But a lot of people think this is not. I want to find some sort of like avant-garde music or whatever it is.
Well, I can give you a lot of different avant-garde music, but most avant-garde is going to be in jazz or in minimalism or post-minimalism has a lot of avant-garde tendencies, things like that.
I love jazz.
There's even stuff like there's avant-garde blues. There's avant-garde.
Is this good or bad art? I think that's what we're gonna talk about this, and it's gonna be like the last thing we speak about. Okay.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, here it is.
Don't blow our eardrums out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Okay, good so far.
Oh man, I could do this. Bruh.
I actually kind of like it.
I was just gonna say too. I actually kind of like it too.
Well, see, that's a part of avant-garde jazz is you laugh at the way this guy's playing, and it sounds like a cat's running across the fucking keys. But this is how that kind of style is performed. Honestly,
I could see this.
Is this guy being serious or is he trolling? Like,
no, he looks like he's being serious.
He does look like he's being serious. I was asking Dandan if he knew the context.
I have no idea. I just found this random clip on YouTube.
Here, go to the title and look how specific it's written.
Anton Webb variations of
This is
no, that's probably serious music then.
Yeah. I could see this being
exactly what you would hear in avant-garde jazz. These different types of like atonal harmonies and melodies and stuff. Exactly what you would hear.
Like I can see this being played in a horror movie or a thriller or something.
Yeah, yes, and that's what you want is that atonality and that angular riffing, as it's called. You know what I mean? Where it's like and you want that,
right? And I think that's the point, that within the context of a horror movie, that's a great piece of work.
Yes.
Within the context of a background or a soundtrack, or it might be great. So, but when you sit there alone and you're expecting the show to give you a theater, you're expecting the art to do more than.
Yeah.
It's there to do. It's not there to do that for you. It's there to make you think. It's there to be within the broader context of everything else you're watching, especially like the show that I went to. The opening was this really abstract, avant-garde
This
like
is why it's
music.
so fucking hard to get people into music, man.
And then it just got juxtaposed by The Rite of Spring, which was unbelievable.
Just perfectly melodious and harmonious.
Not even. It was just very powerful and very like striking and a lot more sublime than it was beautiful. Have you ever heard Stravinsky's The Rite of Spring?
No.
Okay, let me put on some.
Can we play it without getting copyrighted?
Yeah. These are old stuff.
Most of this stuff nobody cares about getting copyrighted.
I don't think you can.
I don't think you can either. Is Beethoven going to come out of the grave and get us?
Well, it was originally a ballet, but...
No, I was just trolling.
Here.
Wasn't Beethoven, like, deaf?
He was towards the end of his life, yeah.
Or was it Mozart?
Mozart wasn't deaf. Okay. He died of a sickness in his, like, late, early.
How I think the point of that is that it's not it's not a lot of melodies. It's not
No,
like
it's very dissonant.
beautiful.
Lots of dissonance is used in that, and a lot of odd timings as well too. So,
what'd you call me?
Odd timing. He called it an odd timing. Well, everyone, I know this was literally last minute a live stream. I tried to put some together. I hope it was enjoyable. Thank you, Perry. Thank you, Thomas, for coming on and making this bearable for me. I appreciate you guys.
Yep, shalom.
And I'll see you everyone on Tuesday, and I'll try publishing some videos with the week. So everyone, as always, what do we say, guys? Stay
thinking.
Stay thinking.